All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast. This is episode 90. I'm your host, Christian Brindle. As always, joined with my co-host, Glenn Shelton. And we have a special guest on the show today, Mr. Tony Holland, a man of many talents, insurance industry titan, managing partner at Integrity Marketing Group. Good morning, Tony. How are you this morning?
Good morning. What an exciting day. I love that pump up music, man. I got to get a copy of that, man. I'm ready to rock and roll this morning, man. I love it.
Man.
I love it. Here with two upcoming legends in yourself, Christian Brindle and Glenn Shelton, man. What a pleasure and an honor. I'm going to just tell you this quick shout out to both you guys. I've seen you guys live, know you guys on a personal level. You guys are two of the most incredible people I've ever met in this business, and really proud of you and your generation, what you're doing to transform our industry and take it to the next level. So I really appreciate you both.
Appreciate that, Tony.
Yeah, thank you for the kind words. We really appreciate it. And we're super excited to have you on the show today. I mean, for anybody that doesn't know Tony Holland, I've gotten to know Tony a little bit, probably over the past 6 months. And, one thing that's jumped out to me about you, Tony, is you have accomplished so much success in our industry, more success than most people could ever dream of. And you're so humble and so willing to offer guidance, mentorship, form relationships with some of us that are up and coming and, kind of aspiring to get to where you've gotten. So we really appreciate that about you and, appreciate you doing the show today. So I'm excited.
Cool.
I'm super excited.
You know what I love too, Tony? I feel like you're still really hungry. And I see a lot of people who lose their edge once they really achieve massive success. So like, that's something I really want to achieve too. Is like, I want to stay hungry no matter what level of success I get to. So yeah, I love that. I love that.
Yeah, I'm just here to pay it forward. I love the business. And I was in your old shoes, 30 years ago. And the older guys poured into me, and I'm just, pouring it into you guys. I think it's important to pay it forward. I've done that in my coaching career. You may know, people Google me. I was a top football coach for 13 years, 13 championships, 5 state championships. And the most rewarding experience of that was to help those young men do what I was able to do back in the 80s, which was play football at a higher level and then be in a position to get a scholarship to a great school. And I was honored to go to Johns Hopkins, and thank God for football, because that wouldn't have happened. So I'm just trying to pay it forward. And I do the same thing with the coaching groups. So I work with all across the country. I travel, and speak to, college coaches, high school, youth, in terms of how to develop a winning team. And I'm just doing the same thing in this industry as well, just paying it forward.
Yeah.
And I do want to give you guys another shout out. I love the cut, man. I got to get back into the club. I'm gonna shoot you guys a picture of me that I did go bald for a while.
I don't want to speak for Glenn, but I think we would both trade places with your hair.
I'm like, dude, I want your hair. What are you saying, Tony?
I went bald by design. But I got tired of people coming up to me across the country. I would do workshops and be traveling, and people kept wanting my autograph, thinking I was Tito. I'm like, Tito who? Yeah, because I'm a little bulky up top. They're like, Tito, come on, I'm like, Tito. Who knows Tito?
Yeah. That's amazing. That is amazing. We have a jam-packed episode for all of you guys that are listening, whether it be live or on the recording. We're going to be talking about, the industry, how it's changed over the years. We're going to be talking about what it takes to position a company to be acquired. Tony's an aficionado on that. He's a person to be listened to on that topic itself, because he's built and scaled multiple insurance companies and insurance agencies that were sold and acquired. So super excited to kind of get his take on that. And then, of course, where the space is going. I wanted to kind of start off with the topic on today's show, and that is, so all of us on this show today have been in the business at least a decade. Tony, you've been probably in the business longer than me and Glenn combined.
31 years, 31.
Yes. So you might even have more of an insightful perspective on this than we did. I have a little bit of an interesting perspective too, because, my dad got into business in the early 90s. And so I kind of saw the way he did the business growing up, and kind of been around it my whole life. But let's start with you, Tony. So let's talk about the industry in 2025 versus, say, 2015, 2005, even 95. Like, how much industry changed?
Oh my God.
And is it for the better or worse, do you think?
It's definitely for the better. And the biggest change I saw is just, in those 30 years is the technology. As your dad did, Christian, I started back in the days when we used ADC maps to get to our appointments. And if you were in rural areas of West Virginia or the backwoods of Pennsylvania and Virginia, they had numbers for the road. So you had to go to the post office or the fire department, if they had one, to find out how to get to the appointment. So GPS, man, what a miracle in that alone. And, cell phone technology. I started in the day when you had to go to find a payphone. We had a roll of quarters, to try to, reschedule appointments. And you just prayed the little town you went to had one. So I think the technology has totally transformed this business. So it's definitely better in that regard. I mean, to those days, I remember having to go check on someone's policies or programs. I had to go back to the office. I remember doing life insurance, and we had to do blood work with them and do urinalysis tests with them, and swab tests came out. That was like a big innovation. We do the swab at the time of the sale, and have to ship it. You don't have to do any of that stuff now. It's just incredible. And especially in regards to Medicare, I can remember, the days when I first started in Medicare in '08 and have to have those big kits and books. You don't need any of that. And back in, I remember in Medicare, we had to drive to the appointment no matter what. You couldn't do anything telephonic back then. There was no telephonic signatures. There was no, pearls, but none of that stuff existed. So yes, to answer that question, the technology alone has scaled this business since I started to a whole nother level. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. I think, that's so true. And I think even if you think about it, so two things that come to mind for me is, I remember hearing stories from my dad in the 90s where he would go to someone's house, he would do let's say a standard life and accident Medicare supplement for someone in that time. And it was, of course, a paper app. And at the end of the paper app, he would describe how at the end he would, rip off like a page of the paper app that was like the person's policy and be like, congratulations, you have a policy, and like leave it with them. And then it was like mailed in or something like that.
Yeah. The old carbon copies back then.
Yeah.
So I never
file in triplicate.
I was always so interested hearing those stories when I first got into the business from him, because I'm like, wow, that's wild. I remember he told me a story because he was a big time producer for Regents Blue Cross Blue Shield of Utah. Because he was a local agent. He would go out into the field for the week, and then he'd hand deliver the apps into Regents' offices. Like he'd walk in with like 5 or 6 med sub policies, like hand delivery them in. Yeah. And I'm like, I can't even imagine doing that myself these days.
Yeah. Drive. Here's the apps. That's crazy.
But I remember for myself, I got in 2014 in the Medicare space. And when I got in, there was some electronic apps. There wasn't many. It was mostly on the med sup side. I think Mutual of Omaha had one. There was a couple companies that had like a telephonic app, but not many. It was still a lot of paper, still a lot of faxing of apps, that kind of thing, especially for Medicare Advantage. Glenn, talk about you getting into the space.
Yeah.
And what it looked like and how it is now.
It's funny because when I got in, and I've talked about this on the show a little bit before, but I'm selling final expense primarily. Also doing some term life insurance as well. But when I'm quoting people, I've got a packet of papers and it's the grid, right? And I'm trying to go through. It's like, oh, are you a tobacco smoker? No tobacco. And then, how old are you? What's the coverage amount? It's like you're playing Battleship, trying to figure out what the quote is. And, the tools that are available today for agents where they can just plug this information in, 5 data points, and then it just spits out that quote so fast. That alone is crazy when I look back and see the growth. And I can only imagine the type of perspective that you have, Tony, because you've seen the industry grow so much. It is also funny. I came from Verizon. I used to work for Verizon back in the day. And so coming from a technology company into the insurance world and seeing how Verizon was always trying to adapt the newest technology, early on, like that was always their thing. They were big on change. They were big on, the latest and greatest, whatever that was, iPads. We were using iPads almost immediately when they first came out, in the stores. And so coming from that industry into the insurance world and seeing, it's like, well, you can fax in the app or you can mail it in. And I'm just like, what is going on? Like, why can we not upload this, doing some sort of telephone enrollment? So seeing, the progression that I have, especially with COVID, I think COVID massively increased that adoption of telesales and technology in our industry, which I'm really grateful for. I think, if you're a new agent, if you've only been in the industry for a year or two, man, you really can't even imagine what even a decade ago was like, because it was so rudimentary in some ways.
Hey, Glenn, you made some good points there. And I can remember the days well before you guys started. Not only that you had to go out there face to face, get them to sign it. After it got approved, you had to go back and deliver the program, the policy, and go over it again and have them sign a form that you had to take back to the company that they understood what was delivered.
yeah.
And if there was a life insurance policy, God forbid if it was rated, my God, then you had to battle that client to collect an extra $30, or there was any modifications in it. So it was definitely different times way back in the 90s.
Tony, we've talked about this privately before, but like, how spoiled are agents today?
Oh my God.
Technology wise.
I did a speech the other day about that, and it's just like I said to the audience, I was in Richmond, Virginia speaking, and I said, I don't feel sorry for the agents, because I know what we had to do back in the 90s without all this great technology. I'm like, if you're not making 250,000 a year or better in this business, get your mirror out and look in that mirror, and that's who you need to be mad at. If you want to make a change, you need to make a negotiation and a strategy of that person in the mirror, because anything less than 250 in this business, in my opinion, you're just not working. And I think that's the biggest challenge I see with agents getting started. Number one, they don't have the right attitude. They've just been spoiled as a generation, and unfortunately, it's just part of, America. We've been jaded. And a lot of this jading has come through technology and development, but it's so easy now. And I think people have gotten lazy. So I think what technology has done, it's made the players like you guys that are on this call better, okay? To go from 250 to 500, or if you're at 500 to go to 1 million, much easier and quicker, but it's made the weak agents weaker. So I think that's the biggest challenge, the attitude about the business, their work ethic. And then number three, they're not mastering the basic skill sets. I mean, the stuff we had to do back in the day, we had to go to seminars, you had to go to live training, you had to go to the office to get trained. All those things were mandatory. You didn't keep your job. And we were on commission. I'm going to get fired from a commission job. I have to be at this meeting, the mandatory, and drive 2 hours to be there every day. That's what we had to do.
Yeah.
So yes, it's make agents. I think agents are spoiled, definitely, and it's really due to lack of. To me, if you just have that work ethic, because I tell people to rate themselves, their attitude, their work ethic, and their skill set. If you fall into a 0 in any one of those categories, you're going to fail. But definitely, if you have a 0 in the work ethic category, you'll never make it. Not only in this business, you're not going to make it in any business. I'm sorry to tell you that. Go back home and live in your mom's basement till you're 90 years old, okay?
It's so true. It's so true.
It is true.
I feel like we did an episode earlier in the year about, sayings or like philosophies or like I guess headlines people use as like marketing tactics, and we called them gimmicks or actual life hacks. And a lot of them that ended up being gimmicks, it was like, ended up kind of circling back to the point of, anything that someone tells you can blow up your business or, skyrocket you to success that shortcuts the work is probably a gimmick. And, I think no matter what you're doing, no matter how you're growing your business, I don't think you can escape putting in hard work in order to really get yourself where you want to be. I think that is it sounds cliche, but it is true. It's a cliche because it's true. It's said a lot.
Yes.
That's why they call it a cliche. Glenn,
Well, that's the big challenge I see on social media now. I hate social media on one end. I almost didn't get on social media, and I've only been on for about a year now. It's kind of a must do in terms of branding and get to the next level. But I see all these gimmicks. You're going to make $20,000 a month in 30 days. Come on, okay? And then at the end of it, you got to buy their program for $1,000 a month. I mean, it's like the old Carlton Sheets guy. If you guys, your dads probably remember that the Carlton Sheets guy was this real estate guru, and he sold his plan, and he went under investigation. 99.9% of his money came from the programs, not the real estate. Like the same thing is happening. It's like a bunch of, what do you call snake oil salesmen out there on social media. And it's sad because 90% of that stuff is garbage. It's junk. And by the way, for your audience, if it's too good to be true, it most likely is.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, Glenn, same question, right? Like, do you think agents are spoiled today?
Absolutely. Yeah, I do. I mean, I'll give you another example of how technology has changed the game. So Christian and I just recently bought a book of business, and we were able to submit for funding and have sent from the time we got the contract signed for this book of business to the funding was delivered and we were starting to move the clients over to us was like a week. And when I think back to, again, even just 10 years ago when I first got in, I know that sort of timeline was going to be very much so extended. I'm sure Tony would probably speak to the same thing. To do something like we just did probably would have taken months, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But it is a double-edged sword. That's the thing. Like Tony said, I mean, I think some people see and use this type of technology and it can make them lazy at times. But I think we live in this golden age in a lot of ways in the industry. And if you haven't been in the industry for as long as we have, you're not going to have that same type of perspective. But I think that if you're not leveraging the technology that's available, especially that the carriers are essentially putting together for you guys with the e-apps, with the quoting tools, being able to utilize, a website or some of these other, amazing technologies like Go High Level, all sorts of opportunities to make your life easier to transact business. And all you have to do is put in the effort. I mean, we talk about this at Lead Heroes all the time too. The leads are only going to be as good as the agent working them. And and the ultimate factor that determines your success is the effort you're going to put in, you guys. Yeah. If you don't work the leads, you're not going to get anywhere. So exactly. Yeah, it sucks because I feel like the opportunity's never been better to be an insurance agent. But the flip side of it is it's still that same 80-90% failure rate. And most of the time it's the agents just aren't putting in the effort. That's really what it is.
Yeah. I think that's very well said. Wanted to take just a minute before we transition to the next topic of the show and talk about this episode's sponsor. Glenn, talk to us about episode 90's sponsor. Who's it brought to you by?
Guys, today's episode of the 7 Figures or Bust podcast is brought to you by the 7-Figure Medicare Agent Summit. We could not be more excited to have the 7-Figure Medicare Agent Summit coming up in just 60 days from right now in Salt Lake City, Utah, June 22nd to June 24th. We are going to have an incredible lineup of speakers and sponsors, a 2-day jam-packed event. You do not want to miss this. Right now, until the end of April, you can get a ticket for 30% off. It's normally $500. Now you can get a ticket for $350. Head over to sevenfiguremedicareagentsummit.com, or you can head over to sevenfigure.com and grab the link there as well. I'll make sure this is in the comments below. We will see you guys in Utah here in just a couple months.
Love it. Love it. Okay, let's transition into the topic that I'm the most excited to talk about. And that is, how do you accurately position your company for an acquisition if that's something that you want to do? Tony, you're someone that's done this twice, really maximized the value of your companies and really did it in the right way, I feel like. And it's something that Glenn and I we haven't done yet. So I don't feel like we're necessarily qualified to give too much advice on this. But it's funny though, like there's so many people that think that we sold our company to already. Like I had someone yesterday in a forum, drop a comment, Christian Brindle sold his company. I'm like, no, I didn't. No, I never said that. But speaking as somebody that's gone through that process and kind of has a little bit of experience on the inside with that, like, so if you were talking to somebody today, let's say us, for example, right? Let's use us as the guinea pig, somebody that wanted to position their company to sell their company, in the best possible situation. What would your advice be for how they should structure their company? Like, what should they keep in mind? Like, what should they really be looking at, and what should they really be prioritizing?
Sure. Well, first of all, and thank you for that question. Very quick question, Christian. I get that a lot lately. And I think it first starts off, you have to be the right kind of leader first. And I encourage your audience to do some leadership development, go to workshops, seminars. My greatest mentor back in the day was a guy by the name of Art Williams.
Yeah.
He had a book out called The Coach Approach. I highly recommend you guys get that
I
book.
I have it on my bookshelf. It was hard to
Yeah.
find.
Yeah,
It
it
was
is,
hard
but
to
it's
find.
out there. You can find it on Amazon. I've read that book 1,000 times probably. I bought every CD and cassette on Art back in the day, even though I never worked at his company. But the guy did some pretty incredible things in terms of scaling and building a multi-billion-dollar organization that then became Primerica, then Citigroup. So I think the main thing is you got to be the right kind of leader with passion. As you guys see, I'm pretty passionate about what I do. Been doing it 31 years. And I feel like I'm just getting started. That's something Brian Adams, our CEO at Integrity, is always reminding me when we get together. We're just getting started, brother. We're just getting started, brother. And that's just how I feel. God, I mean, you can't do this business because you like it. I do this business because I love it. I love what it's done for people in our communities, the lives we've changed. I prevented generational poverty. I've helped people get better quality health care. I mean, to me, it's like being a minister a Baptist minister praising Jesus. I'm out there giving hope to disadvantaged people. I'm helping people transition from their working years to their retirement years. I'm helping people with their annuities. I'm helping people with their Medicare. I'm helping people with their life insurance and their final expense so I'm passionate about what I'm doing. It's not for the money. That's what I think a lot of people get messed up in this business. I got to make 250, or I got to make $1 million. I'm working with a guy now that's trying to get back to, his old level of making $1 million a year. He's lost it all. I'm like, you got to change first, brother, or you're never going to get that. You got to eliminate the wrong kind of people in your life, the wrong kind of circumstances. Most agents and brokers and IMOs and FMOs are living in a toxic environment. You got to eliminate the toxicity. So I think the key thing is you got to be the right kind of leader and create in your organization the special kind of environment. When people joined my company back in the day, they knew they're gonna have fun, baby. I mean, I had a putt-putt course set up in the office. I had basketball hoops for March Madness. We always tried to have fun and recognition and awards. So we built this thing around like building a successful baseball, football, or basketball team. A lot of excitement, a lot of teamwork, a lot of enthusiasm. So when they joined our team, people knew it was something special. And so when I'm going out, and I know companies like Integrity and other companies out there, they want to acquire companies that have a special vibe, a special element. And I think the key things is have that special environment, special vibe, but also, Chris and Glenn, You got to embed the technology. That's what companies are looking for. And that's not just in insurance. That's in the whole M&A sector now. I mean, I don't care if it's accounting companies or if it's pool companies, you name the company, waste management companies. You got to have technology built into your business.
I wanted to mention too, really fast on what you said there about beyond the compensation, beyond getting paid to do what we do. I remember I had this one life insurance appointment where younger gal, I was sitting down with her. She was very interested in life insurance, which, sometimes younger folks, it's harder to get them interested in life insurance. But then she was explaining that she had just come from a friend's funeral like the week before, and just being able to kind of sit down with her and go through, how much this meant to her and the peace of mind, right? Being able to offer that type of peace of mind that her family would be taken care of financially if something were to happen to her. And she just went through this whole experience where she saw someone who passed away who didn't have life insurance and what they had to go through. So there is something so much further beyond that financial compensation that we get to help people with. And on the health insurance side, it's the same way. Yes. Right. And I think that is super important. That's a big missed part, I think, of what we do, right, by most agents.
Yeah, I always say this. My mission statement used to be a page long, and I just simplified it to this: we're helping change and save people's lives by providing them richer benefits, saving them money and protecting their assets. That's simple. But you've got to exude that passion as a leader. And to me, with agents, I tell them, you need to start thinking. I learned this from Brian Tracy back in the day. He says, even though you're an individual producer at agent, you need to start thinking like a CEO, because one day you'll be running a team of 10, 15, 20, maybe 1,000, 5,000 people. So you have to start thinking like a CEO from the beginning, and getting back to that environment. And that's so critical. Understanding why we're in this business. That's something I used to do a speech on. Know your why. Okay. There's money in everything. I talk to colleges now. I've been asked to speak at some colleges, small schools, and they asked me to talk about that. Why? There's money in all industries, but if you're just chasing the money, you'll never make it. You got to chase your passion. The money will follow.
Yeah.
And I love this business. I really do. And what I love now is helping guys like you get to that next level. Help guys that have made 7 figures how to get to 8. Guys that have made 8 how to get to 9. That excites me. And I'll be involved in different insurance lines now, and in multiple other companies doing the same thing. I get a kick out of that. It's just, I don't know. It's just like seeing your kids when I coached football get a scholarship, to a school. I'm like, I paid it forward, To me, that's the biggest paycheck I've ever gotten. It's helping someone get to that next level. And that's why, to me, it's an honor to be able to speak to your audience and to you guys, because to me, this is fulfilling my dream and my passion. That's to pay it forward.
Seven Figures or Bust podcast is brought to you by the 7-Figure Medicare Agent Summit. Guys, it is a fact that getting around other people that are chasing the same ambitions and destinations in their business as you is a great thing, and it can propel your business years ahead than not getting around people and networking and going to live events. The 7-Figure Medicare Agent Summit is the premier event. Every year we hear year after year after year that it is the event that has the best content. So many events nowadays, they do a lot of pitching from the stage. They're really just there to sell you things. And if nothing more than that, they're just a bunch of vendors put together and they're just nothing but networking. There's no content. The summit is the best of both worlds, you guys. The summit puts together great, fantastic speakers from all ends of the industry, and also get you in a room with like-minded individuals from all over the country that are trying to build their business just like you. The summit this year is taking place in Salt Lake City from June 22nd to 24th at the Hilton Hotel. We still have tickets available. We'd love to have you come out for the event. We are over 50% sold out at the time of recording this, but get your ticket now while you can. This event will sell out, and we'd love to see you there in Salt Lake City.
adversity, keeping God first in your life to overcome those challenges, to ultimately be rewarded later. Same thing with the book of Job and what David endured. So to me, that's number one. Number two, one of the best books I read is The Power of Positive Thinking.
Mm.
That's been a great book for me. I read that back in college. It transformed my life in college. Another great book when I was living out of that van, back in 1993. It was a little red van, and it was my painter's van because I did college pro painters back in the day, and that it worked out pretty good, did good, but I went through some challenging times. My stint on Wall Street didn't work out, and was bartending, waiting tables. I read the book by Tony Robbins, Awaken the Giant Within. It was a great
Mm.
book. Got to meet him personally, did his fireworks, so I highly recommend that book. That's number three. And Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. That
Mm.
to me was
That's a great
it's a
one.
classic. It's been around since 1937. It's created more millionaires and billionaires than any other book. I was actually rereading again last week. I love that book. Another great book is Rich Dad Poor Dad. You got to read Rich
Yeah.
Dad Poor
Another good
Dad
one.
by
Yeah.
Robert Kiyosaki. That's another great book. I go back to that often. I got to meet him back in the mid 90s when that book first came out. Got a signed copy from him, and it transformed my life to understand the programming that we've been given in the grade school era on through high school and
Yes.
college. Most of us have been brainwashed to fit into the system. Like what's
Mhm.
Yes.
going on now with the tariffs and the nonsense, people are allowing themselves to be manipulated by the system. Guys, we're going to be okay. As I
Yes.
said, when the
Yes.
CMS, listen. I said this. People that know me personally, my organization, and I got IMOs and FMOs call me a lot, and even those not even within integrity, a lot of them call me outside. He goes, "Tony, you got the crystal ball. What are your thoughts?" I said this about the CMS rulings last year. Some of you guys remember I did a little speech about that went online, and I said we're going to be okay. And nobody believed me. Guess what? Were we okay?
We're
We were
okay.
okay.
We're
Hey, we're
okay.
We
still
were
here.
okay. I
We're
told
still
everybody
here.
that. And I'm like, I had to have meetings with, I felt like a psychotherapist or something, helping people.
Yeah.
We're going to be okay. Look what happened. The courts in Texas, put that to stay. The election went the right way for Medicare. I don't care what political. So I'm not a political guy. I'm very independent, because I don't trust any politicians. That's just me personally. But thank God, this administration is pro Medicare Advantage,
Mhm.
because look what happened after
Yes.
that ruling. After it was put on stay just a week ago, you guys learned the news. $21 billion is being infused into the Medicare
Yep.
Advantage
Yep.
platform and pro. That is huge. And I'm telling
Massive.
Yes.
people, didn't I tell
Yes.
you all this? And it's been a year. I told you so. I got the crystal ball. I saw it happening. But no, I've just learned over 31 years in this business, and my time on Wall Street. I studied medicine back at Johns Hopkins. You got to learn to take a pause and see both sides and dive deeper in research. Everybody's instant gratification. Get on social media, get blown up. We're gonna be okay. We're gonna
Yes.
be okay. It's gonna be
Yes.
just fine. And we're gonna have the best Medicare Advantage AEP this coming season. And if you don't, shame on you. It's going to be huge. These benefits they're going to roll out are going to be incredible. And I'll give you my final book, Christian, because I know I went off at a tangent. I do that.
No,
You
I love
got
this.
to
I
you
love it.
got you got to reel
No,
me
no,
back
no.
in,
Yeah, we
brother.
do.
Reel me in. No, but as I said, the coach approach. If you want to build and scale, I'm talking about. I'm talking about an 8, 9 figure scaling. You got to read the Coach Approach by Art Williams, and go
Mm.
online. You can order all his old CDs and download some of his information. I studied that man inside and out, from Tony Robbins. Studied him inside and out. I got many others: Brian Tracy, Tom Hopkins, Zig Ziglar. Zig Ziglar was. I got to meet him personally right before he died. So I was starving for knowledge, because most of you guys know my history. I didn't grow up, in the best family environment. I was abused, bullied. I mean, I went through all kinds of hell. I'm actually got a book they're working on, is going to talk about the adversities I dealt with and how I was able to get to where I am in life. It's going to be a motivational but business book to tell people how no matter where you came from is how you end. And there's some definite principles I'm going to share in that book and how I overcame those adversities. So I truly believe, I thank God for this opportunity. I thank God for everything I went through, because I realized it's put me in this position where I'm here today, talking to the great Christian Brindle and Glenn Shelton and your amazing audience.
Those books, that was a really good list.
Really good list.
Yeah.
Like I two of those in particular that I read probably, I don't know, age 22, 23, and both of them I've read multiple times over. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich. And every book on that list was a great book for sure. But those two books in particular, like I feel like there's such a long list of highly successful people that I've spoken to over the years that mention those books when I ask that question. Most people have the Bible on their list as well. That one kind of goes without saying. But yeah, like those two books in particular, like they're almost like they're almost like the gateway drugs to improving your life a little bit. They're like they're books that a lot of people start off reading, and they're transformational in so many ways. Yeah, both of those books are just iconic.
Tony, did you read Quadrants by Robert as well? Robert Kiyosaki?
No, I have not. Oh yeah, the four quadrants. Yes, the quadrants.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, great book.
That was a big one I liked Rich Dad Poor Dad a lot too, but Quadrants really kind of hit me too, where it just really helped kind of click, how things work.
He used to do a road show on that. I went to his road show where he went to demonstration about being an E versus being an I and being a B.
Yes.
Versus being being an S. An E is an employee, S is self-employed, a B is the business owner, and I is an investor. And to me, I think everyone on your call needs to strive to be the I, the B and the I. You want to be on the if you're looking at the board, on the right side of the quadrant, not an E or an S, because that's destined for failure. Most E's are what you call our employees. Really, they're just, to me, they're sheep. They're just another form of slavery. Only time I think in being an employee is good is if you can be an entrepreneur, versus an entrepreneur, that you own stocks, an equity stake in that company. If you don't have that, I learned this from Art Williams, leave that company today and go to a company that's going to give you some type of profit share in the company. That's the only time being an E is any good, because you're really kind of a B and an I at the same time as being an employee. Self-employed are your doctors and lawyers. To me, that's destined for obvious challenges, because if you're a surgeon, you can't use your hands, you're out of business. Okay. And then to me, I've always strived to be the B and the I. And to me, the ultimate is being the I. When you got your money making money, and that money making money, and that money making money, that money did making money, that's where you need to be. And that's something that I teach and talk about now, how I had that crossroad to go from being a B to an I, and getting in the equity stake of big businesses. That's where the money's made, in these exit deals, M&A deals. Yeah. That's where the big money is. I'm talking about big money when it's got the number 100 and many zeros after it. I'm talking about 9-figure deals. That's what I'm talking. Because I used to always wonder how guys like Mark Cuban and guys like him were able to buy a sports franchise. And it's like, I see now how they did it. They're no better than us. They just were on an equity side of a deal, or before a company went public, they owned 5 or 10% of that company before it went public. That's where we all need to be. And that's what motivated me to finally do a deal with integrity, because I got sick and tired of building other companies. I built some multi-billion-dollar companies like Cigna and Bravo and HealthSpring and Oak Street, and a company called Senior Life and Lincoln Heritage and American Income. I built a lot of companies, put billions and billions of dollars of business in the books, and these companies go public or they get acquired, and then I get what? Zero. Yes, I got a commission. Yes, I got a renewal, but the big money is on the equity side.
Yeah, I think that's a great lesson. And that is such a good point. Like you mentioned guys like Cuban or, other people in that ecosystem type of roles. They're just playing a different game than everybody else. And
there's definitely a different game, my friends.
There's levels.
Definitely a different game.
There's levels.
Definitely a different game.
Yeah.
I want to talk just really briefly, just a tiny bit more about the acquisition conversation. So, like, have you found that organizations that get acquired, like aside from having a great culture, which that makes all the sense in the world. Nobody wants to buy a big problem or a big dramatic problem or, a toxic environment or, a organization where they have unhappy people or anything like that. In addition to that, are there any other types of characteristics that you feel like really put an organization in a good spot to be desirable to be
Exactly.
acquired?
Great question, Christian. And I'm gonna just tell you what I did. I'm sure there's other methods out there. My first interaction with an M&A deal failed with a company out of Chicago. They heard about what I did with Oak Street and Hell Spring, they said I wasn't big enough. They were looking for someone with a 10 million EBITDA or better, and they're like, "You're not big enough." So it pissed me off. So, and I'm glad it happened. I stayed friends with those guys, and I worked my butt off to get it there. But during that time period of scaling to where it was at the level that it would be more desirable, the main thing I did, I redid my website. I hired a company and I made it look so professional. I had a company that designed top lawyers and CPAs and other IMOs websites because it had to put some polish on. It's like selling a car, guys. We've all sold a car before. You got to put some wax on the paint sometimes. You
Yeah.
got to vacuum it, do some house cleaning, change the spark plugs, change the oil, maybe put a new set of
Yeah.
tires on. So I did a makeover. I changed my logo. I hired a PR firm that helped me design a logo that was fitting. I got on social media, to an extent, which was really more YouTube stuff, so I could be recognizable. And one of the big things I did a testimonial video, which I learned from a company called ACN. Some of you old timers remember, it was a American Communications Network. It was a network marketing company, and their whole way of getting people to buy in, you got a VHS cassette, and they shared the dream. It was called In Their Own Words. So I created my own In Their Own Words, where all my people that were successful in my organization, I helped, they gave a testimonial on a cruise ship, or, I do annual trips wherever it was around the world, and we would do outtakes with them. So they saw my company as a people, not just a brand, a logo, a website. They bought my people. You understand that? They bought into the people, into the culture. Because, of course, I want to say I'm great. I'm the leader. But then what do your people say about you? And an acquiring private equity company or a company like Integrity or others out there, they're going to find out. They want to know, one, are you the right kind of leader? Number two, what are your people like? Okay. And to me, also make sure you're compliant. There's organizations out there that we do deep dives on them and background checks. They're not the kind of right people we want. So you want to make sure you clean up your shop. If you got to get rid of some people that are not quite the right thing for this business, you need to do that. So I think that's important in terms of you building your business and building an empire. So what I did is I cleaned up shop, changed the website, changed the logo, parted ways with some people that I needed to part ways with to clean it up. And then also on the accounting side, I hired a top accountant, from one of the top accounting firms to make sure my books look right. I also hired the right attorney. I hired Chuck Morgan, one of the top M&A attorneys. Yes, he was $1,100, almost $1,200 an hour. People are like, "Are you crazy?" And you get what you pay for, brother. And he got
Yes.
me a better
Yes.
deal. And it's like, just like what you guys are doing with Lead Heroes and your other what is it called, Hire Heroes. People want the success, but they don't want to invest in it. It's amazing how many
Yeah.
people don't go to workshops and seminars. There's many on this call. I can see, some of the people that have visited with you guys that are some of the top players in this business. Pay to meet with them, pay to work with them, because that $1,000 investment is going to pay off tenfold. So me
Yes.
investing in, Chuck Morton at almost $1,200 an hour, and then he brought in the professor of accounting and taxation at Georgetown University was on my staff. I had an all-star team, brother. And so for the year
Yeah.
before the deal happened, I was cleaning shop, getting the legal advice. I learned more from Chuck than I could ever learn. This guy has 30 years experience of doing these kind of deals. I want to make his 30 years mine. So make sure you bring in the right team to help you with that. And then also what I tell you guys, I shop my deal. Okay, after I got one deal, I knew there's 3 other companies out there. Then there was 2 more that jumped into the mix. So that way I can find out what more I need to do to improve it. Also, bidding wars are good.
Yeah.
Bidding wars are
Yeah.
good. Nothing wrong with that. I'm very thankful for Chuck and his team and his staff and my accountants. And I have an advisory team, Brown Advisory out of Baltimore. So I brought in the right kind of people. Yes, did I spend a ton of money? Yeah. But look at the end result. You get what you pay for.
I love that.
Great
That is
advice. Great advice.
that is gold nuggets right
Yeah.
there.
And I want to give you something else that they're looking for. What made me difference? I had multiple lines of distribution. Yes, I had a field team. But my field team was also a field team that did groups. So we did a lot of grassroots marketing. So large groups, 50, 80 people at seminars and workshops. You need to be doing events, whether you're selling annuities, whether you're selling life insurance, whether you're selling Medicare or a hybrid of those. You need to be doing groups. You need to be known in your community as the go-to guy or woman for insurance. I was known as the insurance guy in my town. And then that became the whole city. Then that became the whole county. Then that came the whole state. And before you know it, I was known very well in 20, 30 states nationwide. You got to create events for recruiting and events for bringing in sales. That's part of that special environment. So number one, they want to know that you have multiple levels of distribution. So I had individual sales, I had group sales, I had a call center, I actually had a physical call center, a brick and mortar call center before COVID. Of course, that changed things. And we had our best year at that time, up to that time during COVID, because my guys were already trained in what's called hybrid sales. We had a VCC, a virtual call center as well, which is still in operation today. Okay. And then we also had multiple lines of distribution. But I'm going to give you a warning to your team. Don't over diversify until you're ready. I was the number one guy with Bravo, HealthSpring, and Cigna for 17 years before I diversified. Okay. So a lot of guys diversify too. So they're a jack of all trades, then really a master of none. And I think another thing you need to build into is the technology. I know we talked about technology before, but you need to have, of course, texting. Texting's a big thing you need to have. Using QR codes, digital business cards. Teach your agents to do that. They need to also be using, like you have, Glenn and Christian, that virtual assistants, hire heroes.
Yeah.
I watched your speech, Glenn, with Chase Gruning's seminar down in Nashville.
Yeah.
You knocked it out the park, brother. And I can't wait till you speak again. There's geo marketing. There's, you can sync your calendar. All those things, when a company comes to look at it, do you have technology? Are you using it? And I think a big thing's going to happen besides ecosystem marketing is AI. AI, if you don't have AI built in your business, I'm telling you, you probably made your organization worth 20 to 30% less. And I'm proud to, I'm maybe giving a little plug, but there's 2 great companies we're using that your team can look into. One is Livemore for Medicare, livemore.ai. Check them out. That's LIVMOR. For the last 2 years, they've been building, an AI ecosystem that's purposely designed to help seniors worry less and live more. That's where they got the name, Live More. They support both agents and seniors to improve enrollment accuracy, throughput, and they also improve member service engagements with better, deeper, and more accurate data, because you guys know data is king. So I would check them out. Another one I would check out is Insurance Copilot. They kind of do the same thing, but non-Medicare related. It's all the other insurance products, annuities, final expense, life insurance, but it's the same concept. I'm going to tell you this. AI is going to make the .com boom, the internet boom look like peanuts. And if you're not capturing that platform in your business, you've already lost the game, because that's the future. And I talk to other IMOs out there that are looking for me to help them get acquired and give them some advice. It's shocking to me that people are stuck 20, 30 years ago. They have adapted none of this technology. So I think it's important you also have technology infused in your organization. These PE companies love that. AI, all these other tech tools, you guys know that. You guys are, by the way, on the right track better than anybody in terms of infusing technology. And good, I'm going to tell you this, Glenn. If I would have been using your virtual assistant program, by the way, I know I'm giving you a plug. Dude, the employees, I would have saved, the salaries, The
Yeah.
benefits, 401k plans, all the nonsense and drama to be able to use your platform. Dude, I would hire 50 of them, 60 of them. They can do the job of, much cheaper as they it would be 100 people, and they're more loyal, more dedicated, more focused. I mean, to me, we didn't have that back in the day. We didn't even have that 5 6 years
Absolutely.
ago. It's amazing what you guys
Mhm.
have access to and what you two are providing, to our community. And that's why when you guys asked me to be on this call today, I'm like, absolutely. I'm with, I'm like with the Kobe and Shaq team.
Only if I get to be Kobe. I appreciate we appreciate that
Yeah.
for sure, and that's some great insight there.
Yeah.
That's really really great information. There's one more topic I wanted to touch on. I kind of wanted to almost weave it into final thoughts just to make sure we have time for both. We have about 10 minutes, give or take, left on the show today. And that is, okay, so I think the best way to do this is to talk about this and build it into the final thoughts of the show. And that is, where is the industry going? What does the future look like? We've talked about that a little bit throughout the course of the episode so far, but where is the industry going, combined with some final thoughts on the show itself?
Well, I think the industry, especially the next 2 or 3 years, is going to be amazing. We have an administration, one that's pro-business. Okay, whether what side of the table you're on, you might not like what he says or does or whatever. And then, but I think 80% of us on this call can all agree for the same things that we want out of life. Okay, we want to be happy, we want to have good paying jobs, we want to have a great career. Especially if you're a business owner, you want less regs, less complications. And I think that's what this administration is going to provide. Yes, there's some things that are going on now. I said earlier, we'll be okay. But in the long run, these next 2 to 3 years are going to be amazing for business owners. I see the technology improving, as I mentioned, Livermore AI. I mentioned them, and Insurance Copilot. I mentioned, the virtual program that you are doing, Glenn. So I think the technology is going to improve like you wouldn't believe. Like it's funny. What was popular and working 2 years ago has already been phased out. So I think the
Yeah.
Mhm.
technology is going to make it easier. Like with integrity, we had a report that came out. Our agents are writing 79% more business year over year. That means from 2020, beginning of 2024 to end of this past year, they wrote 79% more apps than they did the previous years using our
Wow,
technology and platform.
Yeah, that's big.
Because
that's
think
huge.
about it. The old days we had to go look up stuff
Right.
in the rate book. You don't have to do that anymore. Or you had
Right.
to have a kit for 5 different companies that you had to handle. That was time and money wasted. With these new AI tools that are out there, there's many of them. I mentioned two of them. Having a virtual assistant, have a dozen of them that run your business, and you can
Yeah.
just focus on the fun stuff. To me, I tell people all
Yeah.
the time, you're only in business when you're in front of people that can enroll into your service or programs, or on the phone with them. And this technology has allowed us to do that. They got tools now, QR codes now, that actually auto enroll your client. They got personal URLs. I mean, it's
Yep.
incredible with the technology. So I see, Christian, this business skyrocketing. I mean, if you can just look at the stocks, even during the challenging times, certain companies are doing pretty well, and the insurance sector is doing well. It's always been a stable business. You look at it over its history during tough times. I'm gonna tell you this right now. If you want a stable career, lifelong career, even though it might not be glamorous all the time, it's the most stable business. Has created more millionaires than the other business, and that's the insurance business. And specifically Medicare, watch out. This coming year, and many AEPs thereafter, next coming AEPs are going to be amazing. You're going to not only this 21 billion, that's just for this year. Next year, there's going to be another infusion. And then the year after, there's going to be
Mhm.
another infusion. It's going to be, especially what Doge is doing, uncovering all the fraud and waste. You wouldn't believe how much fraud that's out there in Medicare. What if
Oh
we
yeah.
put that money as being embezzled, that's been misused, and put it back into the benefits to help the consumers it was meant to help? Same
Yeah.
thing with Social Security. He's not going to destroy Social Security. I mean, think of all the people. Think about that report that was like thousands of people over age 300 getting a Social Security check. Come on. I mean, come on. I mean, think about how what he's
Insanity.
trying to do, and if anybody is combating that, I check your motive and your intention, especially these politicians who I can't stand, that are out there scaring people and fear mongering people to keep the sheep the slaves in line is really what they're doing. To me, open your mind up, see things for what they are, take a pause. This business, this industry is going to skyrocket to the next level. And I'm excited more now than ever.
Tony, I want to just like clip your final thoughts and like play them for agents when we get these questions that we do, because there are a lot. I call them Chicken Little agents on the show because they're always so concerned. They think the sky's falling. They see one headline, they grab onto some negative news and they're like, this is it. Time to get out of the industry. I'm not going to sell Medicare anymore.
Yeah.
And I can't stand it. It drives me crazy because I feel the same way you do. I think that the future, especially the short term, the 2, 3, 4 year future of this industry has never looked brighter. And instead of looking at some of these things like technology as potentially an extinction event for us as agents, I think we are in the golden age. I think the ease of being able to transact business has never been easier. So you can really scale your sales. I'm super excited. My final thoughts, you guys, I think the future looks bright. I think Tony shared some gold on today's episode around infrastructure, around how you can really scale and sell your business and exit your business, how you can climb these levels within the industry of becoming an agent, an agency owner, an IMO, selling. I love it. Tony, really appreciate your time, brother, coming on today.
Well, Glenn, one point there, and thank you. It's been an honor. God has blessed me, and I just want to play those blessings forward. But tell your team to stay off social media. Stop reading the headlines. Most of that stuff's garbage. It's by design to keep you in that sheep mindset. You guys are lions and lioness, by the way. There's some women on this call too.
Yeah.
Think like a lion. There's a reason why the lion's the king of the jungle. And he might not be the fastest animal. He's definitely not the strongest or biggest, but he understands courage. And you got to stay steadfast during these challenging times. And that's a sign of great leadership. And it's not, by the way, just Chicken Little agents. There's Chicken Little IMOs, by the way. Trust me. Usually they're the ones that mom or dad, or granddaddy or grandmommy started the agency, and they've inherited that agency, and they're a big IMO to go to all the big IMO meetings, and they take a vacation once a month, and they never earned it, never been in the field, lying about their true success of what they did to build it. But it was granddaddy and grandfather that did it. I'm calling some people out. You're getting $10 million a year in renewals because of what your daddy and granddaddy did. Hey, let's call it what it is. I can do my research. And those are the ones. Tony, what do you think's going to happen? Oh my God, Tony, what are we going to do? I'm like, calm down, brother. You can tell they've never been out there when the doors knocking and they never earned their keep. They never made their own way. They never pulled their own big boy pants on because mommy and daddy were pulling their big boy pants up for them and tying their shoes and wiping their nose and wiping their butt cheeks.
All-time favorite segment of the podcast. That was oh my gosh, yes.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'll wrap up with my final thoughts, you guys. Great episode, Tony. Thank you for doing this. We really appreciate your time, and we don't take that for granted. And thank you for all the value that you brought to the show today. I couldn't agree more with everything you said, especially that last part. That kind of personified, I think, our feelings as well. Guys, my thoughts are, I think if I take anything away from this call, it's that the value of structuring your organization has so much compounding effects, from the productivity of your organization to what your organization's capable of, and also how valuable it is, for whatever reason that might be for your desires, right? Whether you wanted to do an acquisition or not. And then in addition to that, what I always take from Tony is, like kind of Glenn said at the beginning of the episode today, and that is, continuously having that hunger. Tony, you don't have to work another day in your life if you don't want to, but here you are on a podcast, closing in on an hour, dropping bombs, bringing some fire, and as passionate as ever. And out there working, helping people. So I love it. It's inspiring for me. Guys, appreciate all of you as we reach the top of the hour. We'll kind of close it out there. Tony, real quickly before we end, where can people find you on social media? Where's the best place to follow?
Go to Instagram. Go to Instagram at the Tony Holland. The Tony Holland at Instagram. That's where you can find me. I'm also on YouTube. I'm also on Facebook, LinkedIn, but the main place is Instagram. The Tony Tony Holland Holland.
Love it. Love it. Thank you again for your time.
And let your audience know they call Coach Tony. I'm gonna bring it. You call me, you want advice, I'm gonna tell you the truth. You might not like what I tell you, but it's always gonna be the truth. And sometimes, like I did with that guy last night, I had to chew on his butt. I'm like, if you can make $1 million a year before, you can do it again. Yep. I had to get real with him. He didn't like it. He called me this morning and said, "Thank you. You kicked me in the ass. That's what I needed. I'm going back at it." So keep that in mind. So thank you guys. God bless. It was an honor and privilege. Thank you both. Thank your team.
Guys, if you watched all the way to the end, thank you so much. If you watched on YouTube, do us a favor, like, comment, subscribe. If you watched on the Facebook live stream, comment on the stream for a chance to be entered into Freebie Friday. If you listened on any audio-only platform, such as Apple Podcasts, such as Spotify, do us a favor, subscribe to the show. Make sure to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Here's to your massive success, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, everybody.
Great job. Crush it.